Hey everyone, it's that guy over there bringing you my 2015 Lizardmen GT List goals. And I say goals. I currently, I'm going to talk through some lists. I own all the models for them. It's just going to be a matter of getting them all 100% painted up. But I'll talk through that as the video progresses. I'd like to start attending fantasy GTs in particular. I think that'd be a good chance for me to travel and see some folks that I don't normally get to play. Maybe even run into some of the YouTubers that we've all grown to love over the years, and maybe add some more content to the channel. So anyway, I guess I'll start off with my inspiration, I guess you could say, for the Lizardmen list I'm building towards. I mean, when you first start hearing about Lizardmen list doing well, I know in seventh edition it was the skink cloud and Death Slaan, as many skinks with poison blowpipes you could fit, and then that was it. Now in eighth, it seemed for a while that the most competitive lists were actually you stick a bunch of Saurus characters on cold ones, have a big bus of that, and then your performance was based on how that unit did. Everything else, maybe I know I did a video about lists that had pterodons to fly alongside and keep people out of the flanks of this unit. But even if somebody did manage to get into a flank, you just move all your characters over and kind of fight your way through. I own the models; they're not together yet for that kind of list, and but I just wasn't sure if I really wanted to play that. I mean, I really do like the idea of this big unit of cavalry just plowing through your opponent's army, but I don't know. I guess I just didn't want to ride on that, especially nowadays. It seems like there's a lot of lizardmen aren't necessarily the best at close combat, even with the cold ones. Whenever I run, I'm sorry, with the Saurus characters, even when I run Saurus Scarvets and Old Bloods, they never seem to do as well as the ones on the YouTube. I don't know. They've only got 2 wounds. I know it's a 2+ rerollable armor save with ward saves, but it's only 2 wounds, or 3 for the Old Blood, and I guess I just don't get that performance out of them. So anyway, the inspiration, I guess, for what I'm building towards is a video that the Sustainable Center actually put up, where he played a Lizardman player who had something like 20 drops. It was just a bunch of chaff. There was a few, and I wouldn't even call them hard-hitting units, but a few units actually capable of fighting in close combat, 3 of them, and a Slaan. And it was really an interesting game to watch, and it seems like it was really tactical, especially from the Lizardman's perspective, because you're really dictating how the game plays. You're putting, roadblocks up with your chaff, so that way, doing redirects, really dictating the way the combats go. And then he used his few units that could actually fight in close combat to kind of, after the units had been whittled down, to get into the flanks and win through in that regard. So anyway, I'll run through the list that he had. This is just raw, exactly what was in the video. All right, so he had this 2500, Slaan, Calming Cognation, Focus of Mystery, BSB, Dispel Scroll. So basically, Lore Master of High Magic with, he gets to reroll his first Dispel attempt. That was the Becalming Cognition, BSB, and Dispel. Yeah, so obviously standard build, Skink Priest level 1 to Beasts. He had 30 skinks with blowpipes, 20 skinks with javelins, and these are skirmishers, so that's 5 groups of 10 skirmishers. 2 units of 10 cohorts, 15 Saurus with a banner, 5 Cold One riders with spears and a musician, 14 Temple Guard, full command, 3 pterodons, so 2 units of 3. 3 units of 3 Rippers, 5 Chameleon Skinks, 5 Chameleon Skinks, 2 single Salamanders, and 2 single Razordons. It'd be 2,500 points. So if you count that up, I think it's like 20 drops, 21 if you include the characters, and then the chameleon skinks, they're scouts, so I guess so it'd be like 19 drops or something like that. Anyway, so you're probably going to go second, but he just had something for everything, you know. He against Sustainable Center, he played against a dwarf gun line. He was able to get past a flank and then into the backfield and into all the war machines. And then that's the key with dwarves, is taking out their war machines, because then the dwarf blocks never really can make it to you. So you just kind of win on points that way, because if they're not in combat, dwarf blocks can't get points. Shooting dwarves can, but if your opponent didn't bring any shooting dwarves, then he's got to move 6 inches towards you every turn. Seemed like it'd be effective. You saw Once Bitten just posted up a video where he played with his Bretonians, because that's what I was worried about when I was running through all the scenarios with this, is your 2+ armor save cavalry walls going through, and I guess they move so quickly that you wouldn't have time to set up your chaff the way you want it, and I was worried about that, but I was surprised to see Once Bitten. Well, it was a different list. It had some Scarvets, and then it didn't have quite so many chaff pieces, but it had 2 units of 8 croc scores, which is pretty obscene, coming in the flanks, to that, which really obviously did a number on the cavalry units. But which is weird. One of them didn't even make it in, though. It was mostly the skink shooting that whittled down. It Once Bitten's right flank, and the left flank was a Scarvet and a croc scores getting in. It was just kind of interesting to see how that played out also. So it kind of makes me think that this list could work. And, you know, I'm still kind of fiddling around with the points. I do own all of those models. And for the most part, they're painted. I'll talk about painting goals, I think, sometime. But I think that's what I'm going to be building towards. Because against Dark Elves, it seems like you'd be able to win the chaff war. I really want that to be the focus of my games in 2015, is the chaff war. I think that's a skill that I don't really have. I tend to build big blocks of troops, and then the chaff, I use magic missiles or whatever to clear them out, but I want to step up my tactical game as far as positioning units, and kind of use that as a way to improve my game. And I think it'd be more interesting to play too, rather than just having a big bunch of blocks. I set out my models to look at, and it looks like an army. It's not like I've got a giant block of something with some, you know, I'm not picking on Skaven or Dark Elves, but you know how they have like the Scream Bell, the Plague Furnace, and the Cauldron of Blood, like some really big, ridiculous chariot-looking thing with a bunch of guys standing around it, and then I've got a few stragglers on the outside. You know, it looks like what an army would actually look like. A bunch of, you know, some ranked up guys, some skirmisher guys, some, you know, a general, but not like a whole unit of generals, just one guy. So I really like the look of that. So I'm still playing around with points, but I'm considering the Bastillodons for magic missiles and to use as some backup chaff pieces. But you really have to have your combat blocks in place to as kind of like a countercharge element. So the way that this list would play is you've got your Slaan in the middle. Everything's leadership 5 or 6 for the most part. You do have cold-blooded, but if stuff starts running, it's going to run through everything else. So you really got to put that guy in a key position. You know, right now I'm looking at Focus of Mystery to Lore, so I can have Lore Master high, but Lore of Light might not be so bad either. So that way you could rally guys that are running too far away from you to use your leadership to pull them back in. So anyway, he's at your center to catch the fleeing units as they flee past and keep units from panicking and running. Because unless they're your pterodons who can rally and then just fly right back, if they flee, now they're out of position. So you don't want units just cascading through each other off the board. So yeah, so Slaan, he's your center. Everybody's going to be gunning for your Slaan because that's 335 to 390 points. That's the easiest 390 points they can get. Well, I'm not going to say the easiest, but that's the biggest chunk of points just in one model. So everybody's going to be gunning for him. So the rest of your army really, I don't want to say is defending the Slaan, because I guess if you had to, you could sacrifice him if it meant winning the game, because it's not like vampires where your army just completely crumbles and dies if your general dies. But just know that people are going after that. That's just their natural. That's your center, so everybody's going to be going there. So use that to your advantage. So now everybody, you know where everybody's going, and you can set up redirects to prevent that, because sometimes players will put an unnecessary amount of value on achieving something to the point where their whole strategy becomes take this thing out. In 40K, I used to run, you could take like a building as part of your army, which in 40K, or fantasy, that sounds kind of weird, but you could have this building. And I remember Space Marine players like dropping Melta units down to blow up that building. And I was playing Tyranids, which are kind of like the bug race. And that was perfect because they'd drop in, shoot at something that was really not that important, and I'd be able to clean them up. And a lot of shots were going into that building, when really the building, it didn't offer any points to them. It didn't offer any kill points or anything like that. They just had to take it out because it had big guns on the top of it, which weren't really that accurate. They're both skill 2, so you can imagine how effective they were. Anyway, the Slaan is that. That's the thing everybody's going to be trying to go after. So that will become people's strategy against this list. I could see. So, all right. So you got him. Now you got your chaff walls, right? So you've got your skink skirmishers. So there's 3 categories. Well, I'm going to say 4 categories of chaff for lizardmen. There is the skirmisher types. Those are They're like really maneuverable. They can reform and spin around, and they're stubborn in forests because they're skirmishers. So they're kind of like your buckler. You know, there's something that you can use to deflect blows as they're coming in. They're not going to take direct hits very well, but you can use them to kind of dance around right in the middle. Your next is your ranked infantry, so it's like your skink cohorts. You need those guys because I anticipate the reason why I can't really just cut and paste his list is he doesn't really have any fortitude. I anticipate fortitude being either use units with fortitude to hold terrain pieces, or you have to have fortitude units in certain parts of the board, or you just have the fortitude scenario might come up. So I'm probably gonna have to end up putting banners in those guys. So I kind of need those, but they are your they're cheaper. They help you get to your 625. And but they're slower to move. So it's easier to estimate where people are going to go after they crash into a cohort unit. You know where they're going to go, where they're going to overrun into, but they're slow. And they're not as maneuverable because you have to pass leadership checks to move and march, and then you won't be able to shoot. So they're not as effective as skink skirmishers, but you need at least a couple. Again, I need them for fortitude, but being 5 points, it's easy to round off that last few points to get to your 625 for your 25% core. So your skirmishers ranked. Then you've got your flyers. So these perfect example pterodons. Your flying fast cav who can vanguard forward, they can be on the parts of the table that you need them to be right away, and they work perfectly with chameleon skinks because chameleon skinks, you play scouts, then vanguard moves. Well, if you lose the vanguard move, I've had games where it's my rippers versus somebody's wild riders, and he won the roll off, so he got to move up first, and now I can't move up there. So if you put your skinks out there, it pushes back their vanguard so that you can vanguard where you want to. So pterodons, ripperdactyls go well with chameleon skinks. So anyway, flying fast cav, they're where you need them right at the beginning. If you get first turn, they can fly over, drop the rocks, and be behind enemy lines. And with the skink cloud list, I think that's important to be, because now it's something else to think about on top of all the other things. Because you're basically you're playing it at a level where they have to really think through the movements of their infantry and where your guys are in order to win. So they just put more on their plate to think about. It can cause them to make more mistakes and hopefully play into your plans. So, so yeah, you got the flying ones. And now the fourth category is the category of those who cannot flee, who cannot choose to flee. These are Ripperdactyls, Razordons, unless you turn them around, because if they can't stand and shoot, they're allowed to flee. So if they're facing the other way, they can flee, but facing forward to shoot, now they can't flee anymore. And anything with stupidity, like cold ones. So not that those are really chaff, but Lizardmen have a lot of chaff that just can't flee. Vampire counts and other undead armies and demons also face this. So those are your four categories. So you've got your Rippers and your Chameleon Skinks, your Pterodons out in front, your Rippers flying around backwards so that they don't frenzy charge into something. Trying to get around the sides, because if they reform a block to face your Ripperdactyls, that's huge, because now that's one less block you've effectively redirected without losing any points. So you're using those guys to maneuver around. The Pterodons are really good because they can flee. Like if they go out in front of their army, they can flee. When they rally, they can fly back up and just stall the whole way. They're also good for going after war machines and getting those points, because you gotta get points where you can get them with this list. It's not like you're just gonna win the combats. You gotta go and get all the support units that your opponent has. So those guys are out front, kind of giving your opponent some things to think about. They can also be used to railroad folks. So say you've got a Bretonnian Night Lance or whatever. If you railroad them so that they can't turn, they have to like keep going straight or something, then you're affecting the way that they can move. Next is your skink cloud. So your skirmishers, probably your skirmishers on the outside, and then your skinks in the back. The skirmishers have bigger footprints, so they flee through more people, which is bad, but your skink should probably be closer into your slan. The point of your skink skirmishers is to accept charges from your opponent when they all right, well, let me go back. So it's your shield. So if, say, 3 units are charging, there's a Chaos Warrior unit, there's a Skull Crushers, and a Chimera. Let's say that you can kill the Chimera. The Warrior unit you need to cast some more spells on or whatever, so you don't necessarily want that one to come in right away. And the Skull Crushers, like, there's no way to keep them out. So when it's your turn to move, you set your you put a unit up to 2 units up to double flee from the warriors, because you just can't accept them yet. Effectively, you're keeping them out of your bubble, if you will. The Chimera, you think you can kill that thing, so you put a unit up to accept a charge, knowing that if they reform, then they're inside or whatever, or if they overrun, then they're definitely inside your bubble, so make sure your Slan's not there. But then you've got your combat blocks to come in the flanks and hopefully break it and catch it or kill it on the charge. And then the Skull Crushers, you set up a unit, because they're frenzied, you redirect them towards the table edge, so that way they're facing away from you. They'll have to turn around, and you buy yourself some more time. So when he charges, you double flee. The Chaos Warriors go forward just a couple inches, so they're way outside now. The Chimera makes it, so he flies his 20 inches into contact with your unit, and then those Skull Crushers hit. When they kill off that unit, they just are going towards the table edge now. So now you've just got the Chimera. Now you envelop that Chimera. You put your chaff around to keep any other units from supporting it. You got to factor in overruns, though, so that way they don't get into your unit now. And then you charge in all of your well, I guess you would charge in first, then move your chaff. But you charge in and just try to break it that way. And that's how the play style goes. That goes for everything. If it's something too big for you to swallow, you got to redirect it out of there. You got to keep it back, and then you only accept in the things that you can kill. And that's kind of focused on more of a aggressive army. Passive armies, I mean, if everything's a skirmisher, then everything's at -1 to hit. So you're just going up, you're using woods, your aquatics, you're using water features where you can, just to be really hard to hit all the time. And then you get within 12 inches of them, and then now it's just a skirmisher shooting war right there, right at short range, using your rippers, your pterodons, and then your salamanders and razordons. I guess I should talk about them too. They're your support fire. So let's say some Skaven slaves get in or whatever, your salamanders would be perfect to set down a template and roast them after they've either redirected or whatever, wherever they're at, moving that salamander up. The Slaan, using his walk between worlds, he can move himself out of the way. He can move razordons and salamanders into the way. He can do a lot of things in that regard. So really, you're just trying to win by a few hundred points while trying to minimize the amount of points that you get. Everything's sacrificial except your Slaan, and then you've got a few units held back to deal with units that come into your bubble. So anyway, that's the list I'm building towards. You know, I'm not sure if I'm going to do a complete cut and paste, but I'll put pictures of my army once I get them all set up. Right now I'm getting 100, it's 80 skinks and 30 temple guard painted through blue table painting. So those guys will be good to go. It'll just be a matter of painting my ripperdactyls, my pterodons, and my razordons and salamanders. So that's really the point I'm at right now. So it's looking good. I think I'll be ready for. There's a tournament in April, and there's a tournament in June. Kansas City. What was that one called? There's one that's called the Sunflower something GT. I think it's the Sunflower GT. Anyway, in Kansas, and then the Bug Eater GT in Omaha. I'd like to make those two. So I'll keep you guys posted. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you've had success with similar type lists. But I appreciate your time and listening. Please like, subscribe, and share. So thank you for your time. Bye.